the night does something strange to the human mind. It peels away comfort, softens the edges of reality, and makes even familiar places feel dangerous. A ticking clock becomes a warning, a shadow becomes a presence. And in those moments, when fear settles quietly into your chest, you begin to understand why true horror stories linger for years inside people's memories. Tonight, you are stepping into 5 disturbing true horror stories, not just to feel fear crawl under your skin, but to understand what fear reveals about being human. These are stories where darkness presses close, where hope feels fragile, and where survival is not guaranteed. Yet hidden inside these moments of terror are lessons carved from pain, courage born from desperation, and faith tested in the most unforgiving ways. As you listen, let the fear pass through you, but let the meaning stay. Because sometimes the scariest stories leave behind the strongest truths. Fear often arrives before we are ready, without warning, without mercy. One of the most disturbing true accounts comes from a man driving alone through a remote mountain road late at night. His car stalled just as thick fog swallowed the road, turning the world into a grey void. With no signal and freezing temperatures, he stepped out to inspect the engine. That's when he heard footsteps behind him, slow, deliberate, too steady to be an animal. His heart pounded so hard he felt dizzy. Every instinct told him to run, yet his legs felt rooted to the ground. When he turned around, there was nothing there. No shape, no movement, only fog. But the footsteps continued, circling him, stopping whenever he stopped, following whenever he moved. For hours, fear played with his mind, draining his strength. He later realized the sound was ice cracking beneath his own boots, echoing strangely in the fog. But in that moment, terror was real, crushing, undeniable. What saved him was not bravery in the way movies show it. What saved him was endurance. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to think clearly, to stop reacting to every sound. He remembered his mother's words from childhood, spoken during thunderstorms when he was afraid. Fear grows when you feed it. He stayed by his car, conserved energy, and waited until morning light cut through the fog. Rescue came hours later. That night taught him that fear is not proof of weakness. Fear is a signal. It strips away comfort and exposes what you are made of. In life, fear arrives when relationships fall apart, when finances collapse, when illness enters without invitation. Horror teaches us that fear does not destroy us unless we surrender to it. Sometimes, surviving means standing still in the fog, trusting that clarity will return. There is something deeply unsettling about silence. In one small town, a house sat abandoned after its occupants vanished overnight. Furniture was untouched. Meals were left half-eaten. The most disturbing detail wasn't violence or blood, but the silence that followed. Neighbors claimed the house felt wrong, as if sound itself refused to exist there. A group of teenagers dared each other to enter one night. Inside, they said their footsteps felt muted, their breathing too loud, like the house was listening. One of them reported hearing a low humming, barely audible, coming from the walls. Another felt a hand brush against his shoulder, yet no one stood behind him. They ran out screaming, shaken to their core. Later investigations found no physical explanation, but the lesson remained heavy. Silence can be louder than screams. In life, silence often appears in broken homes, unanswered prayers, relationships where communication dies slowly. Horror stories remind us that silence demands attention. Ignored warnings, unspoken pain, and suppressed emotions can grow into something terrifying. Listening, even when it's uncomfortable, can save us from far greater darkness. Instinct is another theme horror refuses to let us ignore. A woman walking home late one evening felt an overwhelming sense of dread as she passed a quiet street. Nothing appeared wrong. Streetlights were on. Houses looked normal. Yet something deep inside urged her to turn back. She dismissed it, not wanting to seem foolish. Moments later, a man emerged from between parked cars and grabbed her arm. She screamed, fought, and managed to escape, running until her lungs burned. Police later confirmed the man had attacked others in the area. Survivors often describe this same feeling, a whisper inside warning them before danger strikes. Horror teaches us that instinct is not imagination. It is the mind processing danger faster than logic can explain. In everyday life, ignoring intuition can lead to emotional harm, toxic relationships, and destructive choices. Fear in these moments is not an enemy. It is protection, speaking softly, asking to be heard. Darkness does more than frighten. It tests faith. Deep underground, a group of miners were trapped after a tunnel collapse. With limited air, no light, and uncertainty pressing down on them, panic spread quickly. Some screamed, some shut down completely. One man began to pray out loud, his voice trembling but steady. Others joined not out of certainty, but desperation. Hours passed in pitch darkness. Several miners later reported seeing faint figures, shadows moving just ahead of them, guiding them through narrow passages to an air pocket. Rescuers eventually found them alive, huddled together, praying. Whether those figures were hallucinations or something beyond explanation did not matter to the men who survived. What mattered was that belief gave them strength when logic failed. Horror stories like this reveal that faith often becomes strongest when everything else is stripped away. In life's darkest tunnels, belief can become the rope that keeps us from falling into despair. Evil exists, and horror does not pretend otherwise. True crime stories reveal cruelty so shocking it shakes our sense of safety. Yet within these same stories are moments of unexpected courage. A woman hearing screams from a neighboring apartment once forced her door open and intervened, saving a stranger's life. She later admitted she was terrified, shaking uncontrollably. Courage did not remove her fear, it carried her through it. Horror reminds us that evil does not win simply by existing. It wins when good people believe fear excuses inaction. Isolation is perhaps the most disturbing element of horror. A child lost in the wilderness, crying into the night. A prisoner in solitary confinement, losing track of time. A patient trapped in a hospital room, unheard and unseen. Isolation erodes the mind. Many survivors describe it as worse than physical pain. Horror stories push this truth into the light. Humans are not meant to endure alone. In real life, isolation creeps in quietly through depression, shame, and pride. Horror urges us to reach out, to speak, to remember that connection is survival. Those who survive horror are never unchanged. A man who lived through a home invasion later said that every ordinary moment felt sacred. The sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, even silence felt different. Trauma reshaped him, but it also awakened gratitude. Horror scars, but it also reveals how fragile and precious life truly is. And still, hope remains the most unkillable thing. In war zones, survivors cling to memories of loved ones. In near-death experiences, people describe a sudden calm, a feeling of being held. Even in the most disturbing true horror stories, hope flickers quietly. It may be weak, it may shake, but it survives. As you sit with these 5 disturbing true horror stories, remember that fear does not define you. Darkness may visit, but it does not own you. Every shadow you face carries a lesson. Every terrifying moment holds a chance to grow stronger. May your heart find peace even after fear. May your faith rise when answers feel distant. And may protection surround you in ways seen and unseen. May courage meet you when you feel small, hope stay with you when nights feel long, and may God's mercy guard your steps, your home, and your soul through every darkness you encounter, now and always.